Story 6. I was recently hired to a new position. As it turns out, I am now the direct boss to my ex-wife's affair partner. I, Seth, male, 30, started a new job about 6 months ago. I switched companies to become this new one's director of projects. Huge pay increase for me. At the time, they actually needed both a director and an assistant director. I was really excited about the position. On the first day, I met early with the VP. I, along with the assistant director, were going to be introduced to our team today. I had arrived first and was chatting with the VP when the AD arrived. Much to my surprise, it was Leeland, male, 30, the guy my ex-wife cheated with. He looked more shocked than I did, I'm sure. Kind of funny now thinking back to how big his eyes got when he saw me. The VP was noticeably confused, but we played it off. The rest of the day went on as normal, tense, but normal. At the end of the day, Leeland approached me wanting to talk. I told him sternly, "I don't need you to say anything. I don't want to hear from you on anything other than work. I don't know how you managed to get this position, but you better do your job and do it well, because I will be making sure everything is perfect." I then turned and walked away. He stopped me and said, "I am qualified for this position. I know you think I'm just a piece of shit." And I was. "I'm sorry for all that, but I'll show you, I'm worthy of this chance." I began walking away, and he yelled one more thing. Also, I left Madison. I didn't believe him one bit. Why would I? This guy wrecked my marriage. Well, in the 6 months we have been working together, he has actually been really valuable. He knows his stuff and he always comes through before the deadline. I only talk with him about work and kind of give the cold shoulder to anything else. He is friendly but professional and respectful with me and the other staff members. He has not once since that first day brought up Kara or Madison. Anyway, I'm starting to feel bad. I do talk more personally with the other staff. Simple stuff like asking how their weekend was or how the kids are doing. I don't ask him about anything other than work. Some of the staff will go out on Fridays and I started to notice that he was never invited. I decided to ask the young, no-filter intern why, and he told me, "First off, everyone loves you, especially compared to the last guy. Alina, picked up on you not liking him, got to be a reason for that, so we all keep our distance." Well, fuck, he's getting exiled because of me, which really isn't fair. Our past aside, he is really valuable to the team, and hasn't done anything to warrant exclusion from the others. So I started being more personable with him over the past few months. Asking how he's doing, how the weekend was. We started talking about sports, which led to talking about other stuff. We have a lot in common actually. I still don't like him very much because of our history, but sometimes I feel like Ricky Bobby in that movie after Cal moves into his house, like, why am I still talking to you? Anyway, that gave everyone the okay to be friendlier with him, and I heard him get invited to a poker night the other day, so I guess mission accomplished. That brings us to now. I have to evaluate the employees in my department. Within that I can also recommend termination, renewal, or transfer to another department. There is another assistant director spot within the company that is open, and with my recommendation I'm sure the transfer would get accepted. He would do the same. It's a straight parallel move. He has been a great asset to the team. I'm just not sure about continuing this long term. Edit. Okay everyone, I got it. You read back through my previous stuff and want an update on what happened with Kara. We were good, the relationship was fun and exciting. However, when we got to around the 7-month mark we both started to change. I began to become more insecure about her. I have no doubt this stems from the trauma I suffered in my marriage. It was a ME problem. I was a little suffocating, and I had a lot of anxiety when she was on her phone or going out without me. This led to me being a bit passive-aggressive. I owned it then and we talked about it a lot. At the same time she was nearing her graduation and getting her BSN. She was only 21 when we got together and had been mostly in long-term relationships. She had just gotten out of a very controlling one with Leeland when we started together. After that relationship she often told me she felt way more confident about herself. I could tell she was changing into a much stronger and more independent person. A person who wanted to go and discover herself to the fullest extent. I sought out therapy as I had never processed my failed marriage. She sought out independence. Ultimately we made a decision together to end things. It was very amicable. We remained friends. I was invited to her family graduation party and had a nice time, and while slightly awkward the weirdness was minimal. We still talk some through social media but each has our own lives going on. Sorry, not much to the story. I think if it were a few years from now and we were meeting it may have led to more, but for where we both were in life it was just a matter of right person, wrong time. Maybe someday we will reconnect, you never know, though I'm not holding my breath as I have seen that she has been seeing someone else. Story 7. My ex-husband and my last serious boyfriend both ghosted me. Now I'm looking to move up the career ladder and they are preventing me from doing so. I, Madison, female 29, have a serious problem. I currently work for a fairly large company. However, the company is going through a bit of a downturn and some layoffs are expected. I may be one of these. In an effort to get ahead of the game, I have begun applying for positions with some of the other large companies here in the greater Cleveland area. While I have interviews scheduled with 2 employers, these are parallel moves to what I am currently doing. There is a third place I have applied that has an assistant director of marketing position open. This would be a promotion, and I am qualified for it. I have not received a call back for an interview yet, and I believe there may be a sinister reason behind that. My ex-husband, Seth, male, 30, and my ex-boyfriend, Leeland, male, 30, both work there. They also appear to work together on the same team, which is surprising as they both hated each other at one point in time. Each of these men blame me for the failure of our relationship, which is very far from the truth. My ex-husband Seth and I were together for 4 years. Things were great for most of that time. We had clear roles within our relationship and they seemed to work for us. We both worked, and he handled a lot of the domestic tasks while I made sure things were organized, planned, and accounted for. Our problems began when we decided to open our relationship. At first we believed it would bring us closer together by improving our communication and intimacy. I had a coworker who was in one and she was very open with how much it improved her relationship. Seth and I talked at great lengths about it, came up with very specific boundaries, and agreed to give it a shot. I made us dating profiles and from there we were off. I was the first one to get a date. I went on that date and got home just a little later than I expected. This made Seth freak out and threaten me with divorce. I was taken aback because we had agreed to try this. We talked through a lot of stuff ahead of time, and he still had a very aggressive reaction. I told him we could stop and go at a much slower pace. After more discussion we decided to try swinging, as we felt that would be easier for Seth. At the same time I had a coworker named Leeland, my later live-in boyfriend. He had a girlfriend named Kara. They were into swinging also. We all made plans together to swap at a mutual friend's lifestyle party. Everything was good, it seemed we had all vibed together and were on the same page. At the party, Leeland and I wanted to try swapping with our significant others. We asked them to join us in a private room so we could test how far we wanted this to go. As Leeland and I made our way to some private rooms, we realized that Seth and Kara hadn't followed us despite us directly asking them to, and this being the plan the whole time. Leeland and I decided to try and find them. When we did, we were shocked to see they had joined a full-blown orgy, each of them having sex with multiple people in the room. We stood and watched, hoping to get their attention. They were so wrapped up in their carnal exploits they never even noticed us. The worst part was watching my husband break our #1 rule and not use protection with Kara. He even finished inside of her. After we left the party, I tried to tell Seth how he made me feel. I was hurt that he didn't use protection, and I was hurt that he abandoned the plan of swapping. This made him angry and he left our apartment for a hotel room. I found out later that he invited Kara there and the two of them spent several days together. He would serve me with divorce papers later that week and block me on everything. I never got to see him one-on-one again. Having both lost the loves of our lives, Leeland and I sought each other for comfort. This blossomed into a loving relationship and we eventually moved in together. Over time we decided to try opening the relationship. Just as before, we discussed rules and boundaries thoroughly. I began to date some, yet Leeland only made minimal effort. I considered backing off but found he was only interested in sleeping with me on days I was returning from being with another man. In order to make him happy, I began going out more often. I thought everything was going well, until one day I came home from an overnight trip with friends to find all of his things gone. He had moved, and quit the job at our mutual place of employment. He just disappeared from my life. Now I am trying to find employment at the very place they both work, and it is the only place I have applied that hasn't requested an interview. I am having a hard time believing that, given my skills and experience, this employer would not at very least give me an interview unless someone was purposely trying to blackball me. Given the way they both simply ghosted me after years together. I am not completely surprised by this, but I had hoped enough time had passed that they would get over whatever imagined slights they believe I have committed against them. I am considering taking action against them in whatever form that may require. Hopefully, it will not come to that, and they will simply see the error of their ways and endorse my hiring. Story 8. My ex-girlfriend wants my help getting back at her ex-husband. It will be financially beneficial for me to help her, but I'm torn. Leeland, male, 30, was recently contacted by my ex-girlfriend, Madison, Female, 29. Madison was once married to my boss Seth, male, 30. She is upset because her employer is downsizing. She has had success in finding similar jobs to the one she currently has. However, the company Seth and I work for had an opening that would be a promotion for her. She believed that Seth and I were blackballing her from getting the position. In reality, we didn't even know she had applied, as neither of us is in HR, and she isn't applying for a spot in our department. It comes as no surprise that she would create this out to get me narrative. She was the most delusional and controlling woman I have ever met. I consider our entire relationship to be my penance for how terrible of a person I was at the time. Anyway, now that the position has been filled, Madison wants revenge and another shot at an assistant director position. Her plan is convoluted and borderline insane. Our department does have an opening, but it's an entry-level spot. Madison's plan involves her applying for that position. Seth would be part of this, and would be notified of the application because he is the director. Most likely he will nix that application immediately. Madison is then going to create false text records using old messages between her and Seth. When she inevitably doesn't get that position, she is going to go to HR with this, claiming Seth was harassing and targeting her. She wants me to back her up, claiming I saw an altercation between them. She wants me to also lie and claim that Seth often talks of getting back at his ex-wife. The reality is he never mentions her, and shivers whenever her name is said. One of the guys once mentioned seeing this really old movie, Billy Madison, and Seth jumped like someone just lunged at him from the shadows. Now Madison is selling this pretty hard to me. She keeps saying that if Seth gets terminated or transferred, then I'll be the new director. Thing is, that is probably true. I have done really well there and I want that job. She thinks if I got the director spot I could then hire her as the AD. I would never fucking do that. Seth and I have actually worked really well together. Even showing glimpses of being friendly of late. I have done all this work to be the person I want to be, yet I keep thinking it may be worth taking this chance and getting the promotion earlier. My ultimate goal is to be a VP. I should do the right thing, but I'm not going to lie. It is tempting. Update. Hey everybody, it all went down this past Thursday. Madison was correct. When her application came in and Seth got notified, he immediately nixed it. Madison got the usual, "Thanks for applying but we're not going further" email. She promptly came in the next day and walked straight to the HR department. I didn't know she had done this until I got summoned to HR. I walked in and they wanted me to substantiate some claims that were being made. A few hours after this, I got a text from Seth. He sounded upset and shaken. He wanted to get some answers and told me he knew if Madison was involved then I probably was as well. I told him I'd tell him in person. When I arrived at the bar, he handed me a fresh beer and said, "Thank you." I cut him off. It was the right thing to do, but if I'm being honest, I did it just as much for me as anyone else. I needed to exercise that demon just as much as you did. We had a beer and I told him all about how she had approached me and was planning on getting back at him. How she said I'd be the next director and then she could come in as AD. Like I would ever trust that succubus to be around me again. What I did was print out all of our exchanges where she was planning this. I also vouched for Seth's character, stating he would never do something like this. The evidence spoke for itself, and from what I understand, Madison has now blackballed herself from every position within the company, probably at every branch and every affiliate. What can I say? It sucks to suck. Seth had been brought to HR at the end of the day and made aware of the situation, which is why he was upset when he called me. We drank our one beer and had a few laughs. He thanked me again and left. I decided to stay and have one more. When I got back home, I made it an early night. I went to bed thinking, I really like the new me. Story 9. I recently reconnected with an ex-girlfriend. We are about to go on a first date. However, I'm nervous to reveal I'm now best friends with her controlling ex. 10 years ago I, Seth, male, 37, met my now good friend Leeland, male, 37, under not so ideal circumstances. I was married to a controlling and manipulative woman named Madison. Madison and Leeland were co-workers, and she got the hots for him. Instead of divorcing me, or just cheating behind my back, she decided it would be easiest on her conscience to force me into an open relationship and swinging. We ended up swinging with Leeland and his then-girlfriend Kara, female, 31 now. It went badly and all the relationships ended in turmoil. What happened after was I began a relationship with Kara that lasted about 8 months. At the same time, Leeland and Madison forced a toxic relationship with each other for about 2 years. During those 2 years, Leeland came to realize that he was his own worst enemy, and not a good person at all. He has spent years since becoming a better person and truly has changed to be someone I think everyone he now meets admires. We ended up working at the same place about a year into his transformation. I was his boss. It was tense and awkward at first, and he has told me more than once he wanted to run away and quit. He didn't though and stuck it out because he wanted to prove that he was a person of good character, especially to someone he wronged to the level he had wronged me. This all came to a head when Madison resurfaced and tried to get me fired from my job. I'm not sure she would have succeeded anyway, but Leeland stood up for me and proved that Madison was being vindictive. This made my dealings with HR quick and painless. We continued to work together for another 5 years. We had begun to become friendly with each other prior to Madison's stunt. After that it was a slow process, but we began to converse more and more at the office. Got beers after work together. This just grew until we became good friends. Before long, Sundays were spent together watching the Browns lose. I was a groomsman in his wedding 3 years ago, and this past June we both made the trip to the Chase Center to watch the GOAT's final game at the age of 49. This past year I got a huge promotion and am now a vice president. This one came with a relocation to Phoenix, Arizona. Leeland, who had been promoted to director of a different department 2 years ago, was moved back to replace me, much to the delight of the staff. We have kept in touch and he is actually going to come visit me when the Browns play at the Cards next month. We figure we gotta get this in, as his wife Kinley, female, 34, is 3 months pregnant now with their first child, and road trips are probably going to be few and far between once that baby comes. Last week, I was out for a run through the local park near my house. I spot this hot mom in the distance running towards me pushing a jogging stroller. Nike Pros, sports bra, I'm not joking, I literally have the thought that I haven't seen anyone make sportswear look that good since Kara. As we get closer I come to realize that the universe really is trolling me. Hot mom is Kara. We both stop running and stare at each other dumbfounded. She says, "Seth? Oh my God, what are you doing here?" As she walks up and gives me a hug. I can't believe it. We strike up a conversation. We had kind of fallen out of touch. I am still on social media and had noticed a few years earlier that she disappeared from everything. When I asked about that, she said, "I just felt like it was too much of a distraction. I was wasting a lot of time doom scrolling, so dropped all of them." I started a Facebook just to kind of chronicle Jacob's life, but I don't do much on socials otherwise. It was mostly a quick checkup. She is a single mom, I moved here for work, etc., etc. We exchanged phone numbers and each went back to our respective runs. We have been talking all week, almost non-stop. I have those butterflies all over again, just like I did all those years ago. After she graduated and we broke up, she got a job in a hospital around Cleveland. When she started a new relationship, we became more distant, which is to be expected. I knew that relationship ended thanks to social media, and that the one with Jacob's father, Brad, male, 34, began. It was shortly after she started dating Brad that she dropped her socials. Brad was a young surgeon then. They dated for 2 years. Brad was not someone who enjoyed Cleveland. He was born and raised there, but was tired of being there. He began applying for positions around the country. When he got the offer to come to Phoenix, he asked Kara to move with him. They would be moving in together and the plan was to take their relationship on to the next level, ultimately marrying. Kara said the issues started almost immediately upon moving in together. It wasn't any one thing that either was doing, they just were not compatible cohabitating. There were more fights. She said all his little things were magnified, and she knows all her little annoyances were the same for him. After a little more than a year they decided to call it quits. Kara got an apartment and was moved out about 2 weeks when she figured out she was pregnant. This part has been as drama-free as possible. She tells me Brad was excited to be a dad. They briefly talked about whether they should give it another shot. They chose not to, agreeing they could be friends but not husband and wife. Which has been true. Kara says they are very friendly and talk regularly. They have a good custody agreement, splitting evenly. Jacob does 2 weeks with Kara, and 2 weeks with Brad. They got holidays figured out, celebrated his first birthday together, and Brad even made a big deal out of Kara's first Mother's Day, which she then reciprocated come Father's Day. Brad has just gotten engaged to someone and Kara says the future stepmom seems like a good person. I have been telling her almost everything about myself since our breakup. How I've moved up the corporate ladder, and that's how I ended up here in Phoenix. I've been a serial dater, not really by choice. My longest relationship in this span is about a year, but I've been in brief relationships about 8 other times. I was fine for the first 2 to 3 years after Kara and I broke up. Well, not really fine, but I was getting over Madison then, and getting my mind right. But the last 6 to 7 years, when I really started to feel like myself, and was ready to find the one, I have mostly just been kicking myself for letting Kara go in the first place. This, I'm sure, has been a reason for my inability to find a long-term meaningful relationship. We have a date for this Saturday night. It's Brad's time with Jacob, but she is meeting up with them to take Jacob to a trunk or treat at the hospital they both work at. Afterwards, we're going on our first date. This is where my problem arises, and maybe it's not even a problem. I could very well be overthinking this. I haven't mentioned Leeland at all, didn't tell her about us working together or Madison trying to get me fired, or that he's essentially my best friend now. It may be a little selfish on my part, I'm just not sure how to bring it up, or if I should. I mean, I know he was bad to her, but that was a long time ago and he really is a totally different person now. I just don't want to screw this up. I have been dreaming about reconnecting with her for years now. I'm afraid if I tell her too early she will cut out of the relationship before it can even start. I also don't necessarily want this to be a topic during our date. I know I need to say something soon, it's just hard not knowing what the outcome would be. Story 10. The guy I'm dating hid that he was best friends with my abusive ex. I'm considering ending things. I, Kara, female, 31, recently reconnected with an ex-boyfriend, Seth, male, 37. Seth and I made an attempt at having a relationship a long time ago, when we were both dealing with a lot of issues. It ended well enough, we stayed friends for a while but faded apart over time. I began dating again and eventually met Brad. Brad and I were together 3 years before also breaking up amicably. However, we did have a child, Jacob, male, 1, together. Last month I ran into Seth while on a run and we picked back up right where we left off all those years ago. The conversation has been easy and comforting, and the sex is just as amazing as before. I am really falling for him again, and this time we are both a lot more mature. Or at least I thought we were. Due to my custody agreement, I have only been seeing Seth for 2 weeks at a time, every 2 weeks. I am just not ready to insert someone into Jacob's life until I know we are going to be serious and long-term. So we met during my time, and just messaged on the phone for a week. Brad's time came, so Seth and I spent 2 whole weeks all over each other. Now it's my time again and we've mostly been messaging this week. I have another friend, Emily, female, 26, who has a 2-year-old kid. Emily is not a single mom, but her husband is a truck driver and often gone for extended periods. Emily and I hang out together a lot. We also help each other out. We watch each other's kid here and there so the other can have a little break to run errands or get a quick shower. Emily came over earlier today to let the kids play and have breakfast with me. I told her how things were going between Seth and I, and she told me about what was going on with her. I really needed to go to the grocery store. Emily told me to go ahead and just run that errand, that she would watch the kids. It is way easier shopping solo, so I took her up on the offer. I knew Seth was going to the Cardinals game later, and he had a friend in from back home he was going with. I hadn't asked much about the friend, and he didn't offer any details either. I now know why. When I was done with the grocery store, I thought I would pop by Seth's real quick just to say hi, and maybe meet his friend. I was just missing him after not seeing him in person for a week. I definitely didn't want to intrude on this time, so I was planning just a quick 5 to 10 minute pop-in then I would use getting back to Jacob as an excuse and leave. I knew they were planning on heading down a little early and hitting a pre-game bar or something. As I pulled into his driveway, they were coming out of the house. Seth was already out the door saying something back into it as I got out of my car and yelled, "Hey!" in a sweet tone. He turned but his face kind of sank, which threw me off. Then a moment later out walked Leeland, my ex-boyfriend from years earlier. Leeland had been very controlling and manipulative, and put me through a lot. I was very young then and let him isolate me from my friends, and ultimately push me into doing things I didn't want to do. I was absolutely startled and angry by Leeland being there. I turned to Seth. "This is your friend." He looked at me with a shocked expression and said, "I can explain." Leeland began stuttering off some sort of apology that I ignored. I just turned and walked back to my car saying nothing. Seth was pleading with me to hear him out, but I just drove off. Seth messaged me my whole ride home. When I pulled into the driveway I responded, "Don't message me anymore, I need time to process. Go to your game, don't contact me again, I'll contact you when and if I'm ready." That was about 12 hours ago. When I first ran into Seth again, thousands of miles from home, I thought it must be fate. Now it just seems like another slap across the face. I keep going back and forth between hearing him out and cutting him off. Emily thinks I should at least listen, as she doesn't think she's ever seen me happier. But I don't know, how could he be friends with Leeland? He was just as wronged as I was. Ugh, I don't know what to do. Story 11. After years of drama, I'm finally marrying her. I, Seth, male, 39, have had one crazy dating life. I almost began to think I was cursed. I had a failed marriage by the time I was 27, and nearly double-digit failed relationships after that. Then life threw the most perfect woman back to me, only for me to almost blow it again. Well, finally today, I will be marrying Kara, female, 33. I'm not sure this would have happened if not for my best friend Leeland, male, 39. 2 years ago I messed up. I hid my friendship with Leeland from Kara. As many of you who have followed this story know, Leeland is Kara's ex-boyfriend. He was controlling, manipulative, selfish, and immature when they were together. Their relationship ended on a particularly sour note. Kara swore she would never tolerate his presence ever again. Leeland had a rough couple of years after their breakup. He changed completely though from those times. You want to talk about turning yourself around? He deserves his own book on that. For the last decade he has been the most loyal, dedicated, caring, selfless friend to everyone in his life. I hid our friendship from Kara for the first month after we reconnected on the other side of the country. That was until she discovered it for herself. I was so stupid to do that. It was just fear. I didn't know how she would react and I was too scared of losing the relationship again. She quickly exited when she figured it out and told me not to contact her until she was ready. She waited over a week. I wrongly assumed she was just waiting for her week with her son Jacob to be over before contacting me, but she waited several more days after that before calling. That was pure torture. I went over to her place. She had a very intense look about her. Right after we sat to talk she opened with, "So why didn't you tell me?" "I just didn't want to lose you again. I was going to tell you, I knew I had to, I just didn't want to screw things up." "I have thought about you every day for years now," I replied. She continued, "I do not want to be lied to, I do not want things kept from me." I responded, "I know, I'm so sorry, I will never do this again. I just know how you feel about him, but he is a totally different person. I have just as much right to hold a grudge against him as anybody, but life threw us together also, and I came to see firsthand that people really can change." She cut me off a bit. "I believe he is different. He tried reaching out to me several years ago with an email I never read. After I discovered you two, I went ahead and read it. It seemed like a very heartfelt apology. I wasn't completely convinced. Then I got a Facebook friend request from his wife Kinley. She convinced me. I was like, really?" She smiled a bit. "Yes, she did. We had a nice long talk about what's gone on between all of you in the last decade. That doesn't let you completely off the hook though. I don't want anything else omitted. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Should I tell you about the time Madison tried to get me fired then?" She said, "Yes you should, but order food first." We have been inseparable since then. A year ago she moved in with me, and I have really enjoyed being a stepdad, soon to be officially, to Jacob. He will be our little ring bearer today. Kara has warmed up to Leeland over time, which is probably easier to do when you live 2,000 miles apart. We even all went on vacation together 6 months ago and he is the best man in our wedding. I am excited to make it official, just 4 hours from now. Our reconnection also gives us a much more appropriate story for when people ask, "So how did you all meet?" than the reality, because saying, "We met during a swinger orgy," is a bit of a too much information. Update. I have to share this with everyone. The ceremony was wonderful. It was small and our best friends and families all made the trip to Phoenix for us. We honeymooned in Vegas and had a great time, but kept a few days on the end to go back to Cleveland and just visit with family. On one of the days there, Kara and I joined Leeland and Kinley for lunch. We were sitting at a table in the bar area enjoying our meal when we saw a woman come in and pick up some takeout from the bar. She turned around and took a few steps before looking up. There were 5 surprised Pikachu faces all around. Madison stopped, seemingly stunned. She was standing there scanning across the 4 of us. It was probably only for a matter of 2 seconds, but it felt so long. She didn't know Kinley but could probably put 2 and 2 together. Kinley is well aware of Madison and has seen pictures before. Then just as fast, Madison got this indignant look on her face, gave us all the finger, then just walked right out of the restaurant not saying anything. The 4 of us died laughing, just minutes and minutes of uncontrollable laughing. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.